7-245. But again, Ruben, you've been there with the Phillies, right? If you're Mike Rizzo of the Nationals, you got to sign one, right?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, it's bad for baseball that these guys have not performed, because you love to have great performers perform and be on the field, and that's a real difficult situation. I've always loved and coveted players who can do it and have a ring. And guys who have done it in the clutch. But each circumstance, I think, is just a little bit different. I had to deal with it with my ball club in 2000. After the 2008 season, we had won the World Series, and there's a couple of different decisions we had to make. Some of them more, timely, and other ones a little less timely. I start thinking about Cole Hamels, who was just fantastic in 2008. I mean, he was the NLCS MVP, the World Series MVP. He dealt, and we didn't really have to do anything with him as far as his control is concerned, because he was under control. But he was a guy that, over the years, 2009 did not perform all that well. He had, I guess that hangover. But then after that, he was fantastic. 2010 through 2012, you see the numbers, 2.97 ERA. The durability was fantastic. We ended up signing him. In other guys' situations, Pat Burrell was, for instance, in 2008. He was our team captain. He had a great postseason. I really felt like he was a guy that people rallied around, but we had to let him go. We just felt like he was going the other way. I think each guy has a different set of circumstances, and in this case, Pat Burrell's case, I mean, this is a guy that I thought was kind of going backwards. He wasn't running as well. I was concerned about some of the strikeout numbers. Loved the guy. But again, I had to kind of walk away from the guy, and there were some other players there too, Worth, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, I mean, it's each guy is a different circumstance. You got to understand the player. You have to understand what he's like, what kind of work ethic he has, and you have to look at the total body of his work.
Right. In my basic MO, I wrote about it in my book, which was controversial at the time. Like, don't spend $100 million on a free agent. That's not your guy already. And yet, Hannah, I remember being there, and there was just like Strasburg, Rendon in your face being so great round after round. It was hard to argue against it. So what's the line between loyalty, going after a championship, and that ruthless GM efficiency?
Well, I'm glad that Ruben said, we wish these guys were good. That would be better for baseball, because I think it's I don't know, a bummer to be on the side of ruthless efficiency. But I think about, so last year, the Astros won the World Series, and it was their second World Series win in 5 years, and all of those ALCS appearances and everything. And I found Jim Crane, Astros owner, on the field in the celebration amid all the confetti, and everybody was trying to write about, is this a dynasty? How did they do it? How can you build sustainable success? And I asked him, and Jim Crane said, and I wrote this in the World Series game story, the game-winning World Series game story, he said, our game plan, we are prepared to replace anyone in the next 5 years. He said, we have a game plan that allows us to replace anyone on the team in the next 5 years. And interestingly enough, he cited, of course, for replacing Carlos Correa with Jeremy Pena, who went on to be both the ALCS and World Series MVP. But yeah, isn't that kind of a bummer? I thought, that's how they do it. They're prepared. And being prepared to replace anyone has allowed the Astros to make the decision based on whether they think he's going up or down, and not based on loyalty, unfortunately.
Right. Well, because, again, you can spend, but there's a budget that means other places you can't spend. Pena's an interesting case where he had a great April, so you don't need Carlos Correa. Then he's great in the postseason. Oh, Pena, he's making a bunch of our top tens. And now he's like a league average hitter as a shortstop. He can field, but he's not Carlos Correa, at least not the old Carlos Correa.
He's not yet, BK, but I think he will be. This is a quality baseball player, and he has a desire. I'm just having known his dad and the way he goes about his business. He's one of those guys I believe that is going to eventually be the guy.
But look at the performance here. Again, you're going under the hood. You're going to cut of Jib Index. His dad. I know his dad, and the way he shakes my head.
Well, that's important, isn't it?
Right. No. Well, again, that's what we're saying. You do have to get under the hood and see what is driving the player. But there is a tendency to overrate some players because of what they do in the big moments. But that is what it's about. But is it happenstance, or is it, no, this guy comes through in the big moments?
Sometimes the expectation is a little hard on guys. These are human beings, and so the expectation becomes a little bit more difficult. Hey, you were the World Series MVP. You have to be the best player in the game. That's not necessarily the case. Again, you have to look at the entire body of what this guy is about. I think eventually he's going to be a very, very good shortstop for a long, long time.
Let's take a look at some players that we put together here, including like Randy Arozarena, like players in the postseason that are crushing it, like Arozarena, Pena. There's a number of players that built their reputation in the postseason. And I wonder, like, have we, do you almost have to say, okay, small sample size theater? Or do you look and say, wait, no, there's something to this. Maybe there's something we don't understand about this.
Well, I think Randy Arozarena is such an interesting example because in some ways he's an exception to the don't let the postseason sway you, because at that point his whole career was small sample size.
Right.
He had played 99 regular season plate appearances his entire career before that 2020 postseason. And because the 2020 postseason was so long with all those rounds, he had 86 plate appearances in the 2020 postseason. And you know what? Since then, he's had a 130 OPS plus. So maybe that was just him hitting his stride, and he's having a better year now than he's had ever since then. And I think he's learned a lot. People have written about how he's learned to maybe care a little more about the scouting report. So he's certainly evolving as a player. But I do think that in some ways we just didn't think about him at all until that 2020 postseason.
It wasn't anything to think about,
right? It wasn't like he's average and then suddenly he's great in the postseason. He was just he won ALCS MVP before he won Rookie of the Year. So I think in some ways that just was who he was.
Our question on Arozarena in that offseason, we were doing top 10 right now, and it wasn't will he be good, it was will he be great. We know he couldn't possibly be anything but good to great. Daniel Murphy was another guy like that. Remember Daniel Murphy with the Mets, where you're like, is this guy the Bambino? And actually the Nationals signed him, I think, to a 3 or 4 year deal. That ended up being an outstanding deal. But you don't know, is this a mirage or is this the start of something new?
I think it becomes one of those questions again about whether or not a guy is, do you have success first or confidence first? And I think in certain situations, especially with a guy like Daniel Murphy, he ended up having more success, and I think that breeded the confidence for him to become like that perennial great hitter he was year in and year out towards the middle and towards the end of his career, making solid contact, doing what he did. And I think that's what happens. I think the confidence started to just brood in him. I mean, it was pretty effective.